Hey everybody, it's Charles. How y'all doing? So today, I reached out to people on my social media and I said, hey, please ask me a question. It's been about 6 months since I did a sort of Q&A session, and I thought, it would be super fun to do one again because the last one was so fun to put together. So I asked people and I got all kinds of really great questions. But what I realized is that the last time I did a Q&A and I tried to answer multiple questions in one video, I ended up with a video that was like 45 minutes long and I needed to split that into several smaller videos. So I thought that, the questions I got were so great that they're all deserving of their own video. So what I'm gonna do is answer one question per video here. So it's gonna be like Charumail week. And the first question I got from a very awesome guy who always comments on my YouTube videos and Instagram videos, Shane YT43. Thank you for the great question. The question is, what are your top 3 animes of all time? Thanks for the great question, Shane. That's actually a really brutal question to try and answer as someone who has watched quite a bit of anime in his time. And I think honestly there's probably 10 to 20 anime that I consider to be of equal quality that could occupy those top 3 spots. So I really needed to kind of consider this question in terms of, with some differentiating factors. So I thought about which anime have had the biggest impact on my life and which have I watched, more than once because I thought they were so awesome, and which of these anime do I think really stands up today as being something that I think, like, wow, I could watch that today and that is still one of the best anime I've ever seen. So, it wasn't an exact science, but I tried to kind of think about those factors in considering my top 3 anime, because that's a pretty difficult question. So anyways, this is what I came up with and I hope that you all will enjoy it. So here are my top 3 anime. And I really didn't intend to do this in any particular order from, my third to my absolute top pick, but I think just in terms of the way I thought about this and put the video together, it kind of turned out that my top pick was the best anime for me. And I think the second pick and the third pick also reflect that kind of thought process. So yeah, we'll say this really is the top 3 from, influential to super influential to the biggest anime that's ever touched my life. So here we go. Number 3, Slam Dunk. I'll tell you right away, I watched all 101 episodes of Slam Dunk in 1 week while I was in business school and working. And let me tell you, I didn't really sleep too much that week, but I didn't care because I was so fired up about Slam Dunk. This is a great anime. It's funny, it's charming, and above all, it's really inspirational. And so I just recommend that if you have not seen Slam Dunk, you just stop watching this video and you go watch Slam Dunk. I think it's even on Crunchyroll for free, so you have no excuse not to watch Slam Dunk. And yeah, what a great anime. It's just so wonderful watching Sakuragi and Rukawa and all these really memorable characters as they work through all these challenges on the court and off the court to learn a lot about themselves and each other and just become a stronger team and push through even the most difficult trials. It's super inspirational. It's really just good stuff. And I could harp on and on and on about it forever, but I think, there's people who like sports anime and there's people who don't like sports anime, and no matter how much I talk about it and how great it is, if you're typically a person who's not really into sports anime, you're probably not gonna listen to anything I say. So just stop listening to what I'm saying right now and go watch a couple episodes of Slam Dunk and then let me know. Even if you didn't like sports anime before that, let me know. How do you feel now? Because, man, I wasn't into sports anime when I first saw Slam Dunk, and that just totally changed things because it was so good. Check it out. Weirdly, although Slam Dunk is in my top 3 favorite anime, it's also probably number 1 on my list of anime that disappointed me the most. And the reason for that is that although it was a fantastic anime, actually it was never finished. A particularly thrilling arc finishes at about episode 90, and then the last 10 episodes of Slam Dunk are filler episodes, getting you hyped up for the final arc at the inter-school kind of national championships, which is supposed to be the big finale of the series. And you get super hyped up for that, and then you reach episode 101, and you watch episode 101, and you realize, wait, this series just ended at episode 101 after 10 episodes of filler without ever showing us the inter-school championships. Wow. That is just disappointing. And the reason it's so disappointing is just that the rest of the series was so damn good. And I just, to this day, cannot understand why could they not finish the slam dunk anime. I mean, if you look at the manga that this series was based on, it's the 8th best-selling manga of all time. I think it sold something like 130 million copies. Just a fantastic manga, and it had a big impact across Japan. It's even regarded as getting so many people into basketball who were not at all interested in basketball or even in sports before then. And it even had a big impact outside of Japan in places like Taiwan and China. People just love slam dunk. So I heard that the anime didn't have good enough ratings or there wasn't enough money to continue, but I really, to this day, cannot understand why, because this was one of the biggest manga ever made that was based on, and it was a brilliant anime. So why could they have not just put out another 10 episodes to wrap up the inter-school championships and leave us all in a good place? I don't know. I mean, really, was it not popular enough to warrant just another 10 episodes? Good golly, Miss Molly, what a disappointment that was. However, the fact that this anime kind of ended without ending inspired me to actually check out the manga, which does wrap things up more or less. It does take you through to the inter-school championships, and what a freaking fantastic story arc that is. It is both inspirational and also very sad. And I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I totally recommend, if you've not seen or read Slam Dunk, go watch the anime and then read the last few chapters of the manga to top it all off, and you will be left in a good spot. Slam Dunk is awesome, and one particular song from the anime, Sekai ga Owaru Mare wa, is just fantastic. And I love to bust that one out at karaoke all the time, which is probably upsetting for the people because I'm not good enough at singing to pull that song off, but I just go for it anyways. But yeah, check out Slam Dunk, check out the song. I'll put it in the description below. And yeah, that's my number 3 pick. Number 2, dot hack / sign. Man, I love MMO anime. And the cool thing about MMO anime is that each MMO anime kind of has its own different thing going on for it. I mean, you have things like Log Horizon, which are focused on the economy and the mechanics of the game world. You have things like Sword Art Online, which are focused on asana and bad writing. Just kidding. Actually, I really like Sword Art Online. And then you have things like dot hack / sign, which are focused on really deep anxiety and the way that kind of anxiety can tear us apart as humans. The fantasy backdrop in this anime is so well pulled off, but really the story is focused on Tsukasa and his journey as he goes through this terrible experience after years and years of physical abuse and neglect in the real world, of withdrawal into a kind of fantasy world, which leads him deeper and deeper into a kind of isolated, distorted reality until, eventually he's able to make some steps towards recovery thanks to the many great people he meets in the world, which is the name of the MMO world in this particular anime. It's a pretty deep anime, and for that reason, it's often either loved or hated. And for me, this anime was right up my alley because instead of stringing together endless, pointless action scenes, it was totally focused on character development and the various dialogues between the main characters that contribute to that development. But interestingly, the slow pacing and the focus on character development tend to be the two things that draw the most complaints about the series from people. But those people, dot hack / sign is awesome and you should check it out. Honestly, if you're hating for it because it takes the time to develop its characters so much, you're just a crazy little Clefairy. A crazy Clefairy. And you just need to appreciate this awesome anime for what it is, because it is awesome. It's the granddaddy of sexy MMO anime, and it is good. The dot hack / sign show was actually written by this dude, Kazunori Ito, who is the same guy who wrote the screenplay for the Ghost in the Shell movie, not the shitty one. And that probably explains why it is so kind of deep and awesome, and also admittedly fairly depressing and oppressive at times. It's really good though, and for me in particular, it has a kind of special meaning, which is why I ended up including it on this list above various other anime that could have made it here. So .hack//sign came out in 2002, which was the same year that the awesome MMO Ragnarok Online came out. And it was kind of coincidence that these things came out at the same time, and also coincidence that I stumbled upon both of them at the same time and got into them. Ragnarok Online was actually the first, and apart from very brief forays into other worlds, the only MMO that I went deep into. And it's kind of interesting because I got into Ragnarok Online at the same time that I was really deep into some online forums such as Hyrule Town Square and the subsequent Insider forums. I really was heavy into that stuff. And along with the Insider forums and being a part of Nintendo's Sage program, this Ragnarok Online experience formed a fairly large part of my second life, which was a very beautiful life, very much divorced from the very much less interesting life of being a secondary student in Canada. I actually had a great friend back in junior high school who was the one who actually introduced me to Ragnarok Online, and what do you know, he was also really heavily involved in the Insider forums, and also we hung out at Camp Hyrule together during the summers and had many great memories, and even we hung out, in real life at each other's houses from time to time. And he's a great dude, and we haven't been in touch in many years, so I hope he's doing well, but those were great memories. And he is the one who got me into Ragnarok Online, and we had a freaking fantastic time together. I mean, needless to say, back in that day, we both faked a lot of sick days so that we didn't have to go to school and we could just play Ragnarok Online all day from our homes. And that was just such a magical experience, being able to get invested in this virtual world, which was so different from reality, while everyone else was just, doing some science class at school. So it was almost kind of surreal and just wonderful being able to play so much of Ragnarok Online back in the day, and it was a coincidence that I bumped into .hack//sign at the same time, and kind of those two things complemented each other in a really nice way. Back in the day, I was getting my .hack//sign fix from Rogers Video, which is kind of a Canadian equivalent to Blockbusters. And yeah, as they got their DVDs of the anime, I was renting them, and since they were coming out to Rogers Video in a slow trickle, I ended up basically wrapping up the .hack//sign series at about the same time that I was starting to get out of Ragnarok Online. So it's interesting that the whole sort of MMO thrust of my life was kind of bound up in the early 2000s within .hack//sign and Ragnarok Online. And man, I think about those days from time to time and think, wow, what an awesome time in my life. And I really wish I could get into an MMO again, because it's freaking amazing being able to enter a virtual world that is separate from, reality, and just being able to almost in a way be yourself and also be someone else at the same time, if that makes sense. If you play an MMO, you know what I mean, but it's just a different sort of experience from your day-to-day life, and I miss that. And I regret that I don't have time to invest in that sort of experience these days, but maybe sometime in the future I can, hopefully. How about you guys? Are you actually involved in any MMOs these days? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, .hack//sign, what a great anime. And I watched it actually again about a year ago with my younger brother, and it was just as awesome as it was back in the day. I think I've watched that anime at least 3 times now. I really love it for whatever reason. Very good, I highly recommend you check it out, and I can guarantee that the soundtrack from that anime will be stuck in your head for days. Check it out. So now on to the final pick, but before then, here are a couple honorable mentions. Pokemon. So obviously Pokemon is a big contender for these spots, but if you follow my channel, you know how I am so into Pokemon, and so if I included it in this top 3, that's pretty predictable and probably not that interesting. But the Pokemon anime was a big inspiration in my life, and I loved it. But if you want to hear more about my experiences with Pokemon and how that has shaped my life, please check out my video, How Pokemon Changed My Life Forever. Hope you enjoy it. Death Note is another anime I wanted to mention because, man, that anime will keep you on the edge of your seat from beginning to end. And I think that the anime man, I think it was the anime man who did this, recently hosted a survey which asked people on the internet, you know, what is your favorite anime? And I believe that Death Note was number 2 on that list, maybe? If so, it's totally deserving of that spot. For me, when I got involved in Death Note was right when I was in the thick of management consulting, and I was working really long days. I was living in a hotel, and I just lived for getting home at night, you know, maybe at midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever, and just flipping on episodes of Death Note and working through that series. And because of Death Note, I didn't give a shit about sleeping that much at that time. Around that time, when I was on the Death Note binge, coinciding with my management consulting career, I was sleeping maybe 3 to 5 hours a night because I just wanted to be able to work through, you know, 4 to 5 episodes of Death Note a night during the time that I was watching that series. And so yeah, at about 1 a.m. I would flip on some Death Note, watch it for, you know, 1 to 2 hours before I went to bed, and it was totally worth it because what a freaking great anime that is. If you haven't checked it out yet, you absolutely must watch Death Note. It is one of the best animes ever made. For me, immediately after finishing the Death Note anime, while I was still living in hotels, I started watching the Death Note drama, which kind of was a piece of shit. And then I watched the Death Note live action movies. There were 2 of them released in Japan, and actually, they're pretty good, to be honest. And most recently, I watched the Death Note Netflix adaptation, which, let's not talk about that one. But needless to say, the anime stands tall above the live action adaptations, and it's just filled with twists that will just blow your mind. And man, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but that last scene in the anime is just chilling. You gotta see it for yourself. There's also a number of fairly recent anime that I really loved. Yuri on Ice is obviously among those. What a great anime that was, super inspirational, great animation, lovely story. Wow, just a great show, and I'm actually gonna be making a video of that pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. It'll be interesting. And yeah, Magi was another one that I really loved. I watched that with my brother about 1.5 years ago, and we both loved it. Really great anime. I really recommend checking it out if you just want to see a kind of typical fantasy adventure romp. It's good. Very good. And of course, there are more philosophical anime like Kino no Tabi, which I absolutely loved. There are a bunch of goodies like that. But as awesome as they are, when I thought about making this video, I thought, I have to pick the anime that had the most large impact on my life and the ones that have had the most longevity for me. So although I really love those little ones and you should check them out, ask me if you want some other recommendations. The number 1 anime that I had to pick was, so just to refresh, we had Slam Dunk at number 3, Dot Hack / Sign at number 2, and at number 1 we have Dragon Ball. Of course, if I had to pick one anime, it would have to be Dragon Ball. As much as I want to give you guys some kind of sleeper hit, niche anime that no one's ever heard of to seem more hipstery and cool, there's really no other way to put it. Dragon Ball has probably more than any other anime had the biggest impact on my life because it is just so damn awesome and so long running. I pretty well started watching the Dragon Ball anime as soon as I moved to Canada. And that was probably, I've been watching Dragon Ball for about 23 years or so. And by Dragon Ball, I mean Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and Dragon Ball Super, because I've been watching all of them. And so yeah, 23 years of getting totally hyped about Super Saiyans, Senzu Beans, Videl, hyperbolic time chambers, whatever. So much good stuff in the Dragon Ball series, and I have been into that shit for like 23 years. There's no way I could say that another anime has had a bigger impact on my life because that would just be a flat out lie. Dragon Ball is easily in that number 1 spot for me. And yeah, like I mentioned, when I say Dragon Ball, I mean the whole kit and caboodle. Is that an actual English expression to express what I want to say? I don't know, but yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, and Dragon Ball Super, all the movies, blah blah blah, everything. I love Dragon Ball, it's awesome. And even though the anime is filled with all these questionable filler episodes, and there's all kinds of crappy ass movies tied to the series, it is just so endearing and filled with such badass characters that you don't care. There's a reason why the Dragon Ball series is the second best-selling manga series of all time, and in my opinion, the anime is way more badass than the manga. There are just so many sick-ass arcs that are made so damn good by the animation that is added in the anime. Whether it's, you know, the first time that Goku meets Yamcha and he's a badass before he becomes this kind of perpetual cannon fodder for the rest of the series. Or, you know, Master Roshi's perpetual perviness, or the first time Goku turns into a Super Saiyan after Krillin gets shit-tossed, or the entire Cell saga. There's just so much good stuff going on in Dragon Ball, and it is so memorable and so wicked, and there's a reason that it's so popular overseas and that it's a big part of the cultural consciousness here in Japan. And there are people here today who I know, like Japanese businessmen, who are executives and vice presidents of different companies, who are still watching Dragon Ball Super, and they're saying they're watching it with their kids, but I know they're watching it because they want to watch Dragon Ball themselves so deeply, and they're just using their kids for that. Dragon Ball is just so great, and honestly, Dragon Ball was a big part of my friendship with one of my best friends growing up, my friend Scott, and we just watched episodes of Dragon Ball Z together all the time, and had so many layers and layers and layers and layers of inside jokes related to that. And honestly, if I wasn't living in Japan now, we'd probably have watched several episodes of Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball GT, or Dragon Ball, or Dragon Ball Super within the past few months. Just a really great show that really played a big part in some of my friendships when I was growing up too. If there is one thing that'll mess with you with regard to Dragon Ball, it is the difference in the voices from one version to another. And I'm speaking in terms of versions for each country here. So, in my honest opinion, the Japanese version of Goku's voice is a little bit weird, and I don't really like it, to be honest. And I think that Goku's voice, as well as the voices of characters like Vegeta, who became absolute badasses through the voices of Brian Drummond and Chris Sabat, in my opinion. You won't escape my wrath! I just think that those voice actors had the leg up over the Japanese voice actors. The way they conveyed the characters was honestly superior, in my opinion. Beyond that, I also tend to enjoy the music in the American version more than the Japanese version. And I also find that the American intro music is better than the Japanese intro music. But, to be honest, better yet than the American music is the Canadian music for the introduction to Dragon Ball Z. That was a rockin' theme song. I'm sure that most people are probably familiar with the American version, so I'm going to drop the Canadian version in the description below, so after you finish watching this video, check it out. It's pretty good. If there's anything a bit odd about this version, it's the fact that we say Dragon Ball Z, even though in Canada we pronounce that letter as Z. But I guess Dragon Ball Z has more of a ring to it, and if you can just imagine singing Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. It's just not the same. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like young Canadian people these days are using Z more than Z. If you are a young Canadian person, please correct me if I'm wrong. And if you are using Z more than Z, I'd like to believe that it is entirely thanks to this introduction to Dragon Ball Z, which was a badass introduction that was much better than the American or Japanese introductions. As far as Dragon Ball GT goes, I'd probably tip that one off to the Japanese version, because essentially the American version is just a copy of that, but the lyrics come off as more natural in Japanese. The American version takes the melody, but the lyrics just aren't quite as good. So yeah, that one goes to Dragon Ball GT. As for Dragon Ball Super, that one also goes to the Japanese version, because the English version is also, basically it copies the melody, but the lyrics, they're alright too. It's really, the problem is the singing. I mean, I may as well have sung that song because it was just, you totally hit the real definition of a B-lister coming on that one. And as for the original Dragon Ball, well, screw the Japanese and American versions. It is obviously the Canadian version that takes the cake there. I could talk about Dragon Ball all day, but you know what, I just want to, I was about to end this Dragon Ball discussion, but I just wanted to mention, I'm so happy that they upped the animation in Dragon Ball Super, because you watched those early episodes and you were just cringing, but you watch something like the more recent episode 95 and you're like, damn, they got stuff together, and as a result, Dragon Ball Super has become a pretty great show, close to being on par with Dragon Ball Z, and I'm enjoying it. Dragon Ball is awesome, and I think one of the things that makes it awesome is that it is so popular. I mean, it's not quite like, you know, it's not like it's in the mainstream in different countries around the world, but it is popular enough to the point where that if you make a Dragon Ball reference, a lot of people are going to understand it, and as a result, you can make a lot of connections and a lot of laughs with many different people all over the world. And I think, honestly, that's one of the most beautiful things about anime in general, is that more than just being really wonderful, entertaining stories, anime is something that, to me, represents this medium through which we can, you know, not only enjoy wonderful stories, but also have great conversations built around those wonderful stories, and use these conversations and experiences as a tool to really make deeper relationships with people who we meet in real life or online or wherever. I guess it's a bit weird to separate real life and online at this point, since they're kind of meshed together. Anime is just awesome because it can connect so many people through a common passion and just take friendships to the next level. It's great, and it was fun making this top 3 list because when I was just, you know, thinking about these 3 anime that I really loved, I thought about how I've really enjoyed these 3 anime with different people who are important to me. Whether it's my brother or my good friends, we've had a great time just watching these anime together and discussing them, and I'm super thankful for that. Wow, those 3 anime, Slam Dunk, Dot Hack, Slash Sign, and Dragon Ball, are very different from one another, but if they have one thing in common, it's the fact that I've watched those 3 anime multiple times. And for me, even if I really love an anime, it's very, 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 very rare that I actually watch an anime more than once. I've watched episodes of Dragon Ball countless times in multiple languages. I've watched Dot Hack slash Sign at least 3 times. And Slam Dunk, like I said, I watched all 101 episodes of that anime in 1 week, and I've started watching it again recently because I just wanted to kind of boost in motivation in my own life. And I've tried watching anime like Hajime no Ippo and Captain Tsubasa and others, but I felt like none of these anime really have the same fire that Slam Dunk does. It is really inspiring, it's really great. If there is a sports anime that I should be checking out, please let me know, because I love Slam Dunk and I love getting hyped up and motivated by anime, so fill me in if I'm missing out on something. Well, after a few years, I may revisit this list and think, Charles, what were you thinking? But at least for now, after thinking about this list for, well, a few minutes, I feel like this is probably representative of the anime that have had the biggest impact on my life. These top 3, Slam Dunk, Dot Hack, Slash Sign, and Dragon Ball. These anime have all resonated with me for years and years. Slam Dunk, Dot Hack, Slash Sign, and Dragon Ball, all these anime are totally rockin', and I would love it if you have not seen any of these anime, that you go and check it out, and you encourage your friends to check it out, and you have great discussions with them about it, and you have great discussions with me about these anime too, because I'm your friend as well, right? And yeah, please let me know if you've seen any of my top 3 anime. Did you like them? What did you think about them? And also, what are your top 3 favorite anime? Let me know in the comments. Let's chat. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you so much as always for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, a comment, and more than anything, a share. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you so much, and we will talk again in the near future. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.